President Kennedy is dead.
Here's Johnny.
You know, I think when a lot of people think of the Library of Congress, they think of the one in D.C. Give us a little bit of the background about why you all are here an hour and a half outside of D.C.
It is an interesting history as to why we're here in Culpepper, Virginia, the National Audiovisual Conservation Center, Packard campus. In the 1990s, the Library of Congress, has probably as much as any time in its history, had reached a crisis where it was running around out of room to store all the various collections items. It was originally just the idea of converting the previously existing Federal Reserve building to collection storage. But in consultation with Mr. Packard and all the design architects and engineers that he brought to the table, we realized that we had a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build something more than just storage for collections on vaults. And so everything that you see here now, the conservation building with the digitization laboratories for our sound recordings, for our film collections, for our video collections, was all as the result of that expansion of the original vision to what we now have here as this 415,000 square feet complex.
Has digital been kind of a boon for you all in terms of it's easier to submit, takes up less space? I mean, has that whole revolution in terms of archiving what our nation creates been a great thing for the Library of Congress?
It's been a great thing, but it comes with tremendous challenges. And it doesn't get rid of all the previous challenges from the analog era. For example, you still have to have working analog pieces of machinery to play back this 120-year history of dozens, if not scores, if not hundreds of different audiovisual media formats. And sometimes the machinery that you play it back on becomes obsolete earlier than the actual life expectancy of the physical media with the content on it. So keeping that machinery alive is as much a challenge today in the digital era and will continue to be so as it has been in the analog era.
But in terms of modern submission, so let's say you wanted to capture what's happening on CBS today. That just happens all in a digital format, right? Like, in other words, they're not sending you reels, they're not sending you tapes. So essentially, capturing what's going on now going forward, I think will probably be a lot easier than what happened in the 20th century.
Yes, there's a transition there that we're still in the midst of. CBS and the other network newscasters are still sending us tapes. Even the major Hollywood studios will be sending us files of films and television
Why are you still
content.
getting tapes?
Because there's a legal and regulatory framework called the U.S. Copyright Office Deposit and Registration process that requires what's called a best edition for published works.
Do you always feel as if like you're slightly behind the eight ball in the sense that you can only do so much? You've got to pick and choose. That you'd love to capture it all, but you just simply can't.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a constant tension between the desire to curate what we're selecting. There are all kinds of new tools for automating acquisitions of this kinds of content that make it easier to acquire in an uncurated, unmediated mode. And the balance between that will always be something that any library or archive has to encounter in the digital era.
In terms of the kind of money you're able to get from Washington and all the budget battles that we always see there, I mean, how does that all affect you? Does sequestration affect you? Would you love to get a ton more money from Congress for your operation? I mean, what is sort of that relationship?
It's gotten slowed down in recent years. The entire library staff has been impacted by the sequestration. You know, we're all taking several furlough days, just each individual staff member. But we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us as we continue to build this out.
Given all the work you put into this and archiving this stuff, how do you then protect it? How do you then save it, make sure it's it's not going to be ruined, it's not going to get damaged, and that's future-proof from whatever the next technology damaging thing is?
What we have is robotic data tape libraries that have mirrored off-site backup, petabyte levels of capacity for storing this content. So there's gigabytes, then terabytes, and then petabytes.
Well, and lastly, I mean, on our tour, we saw just the incredible effort that you all go through, sort of digitizing these old formats on machines that they don't even make anymore into a digital format. And I wonder, are we sure that digital is it, in the sense that in 30 years, are we going to be like, now we're going to take all this digital stuff and put it to the next format? Is there a consensus that in fact this digital format is in fact going to be, because I'm sure that the people, when they put the movies on films, they're like, this is it. This is all we ever need to do, and clearly not.
When we digitize from videotapes, what we're creating as our preservation master files is a mathematically lossless JPEG 2000 file. We chose that file because it was the only one that we knew would guarantee transferring from whatever physical infrastructure in which these files are stored in the next 100 years
Right.
in a way that would not lose quality when it's migrated through these various physical infrastructures.